What's up, everybody? Solomon here. I hope you guys are all having a great Tuesday. First and foremost, if you see any scam ads on this video, please do not participate in those. Okay. This video is going to be very different than anything I've ever done. I'm going to essentially show you guys the coins that I posted yesterday, or at least two of them, regarding percentage increases, in a daily time frame. But this comes with a gigantic caveat, and I just want to warn everybody, I find things, whenever I find things, I post them. And this is still crypto. There's tons of scams out there. It's really easy to lose your money. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. That being said, everything that I post is just my opinion as to how something's going to potentially do. I've posted things on Patreon that have not done well. I've posted that I'm going to get invested into something potentially, and I always recommend everybody else vet everything out for their own purposes. We all have different financial situations. I generally have been very low risk. I packed my long-term bags a while ago, so these are extreme speculative plays in my opinion. Yeah, and you can really get burnt with things like gas fees and stuff like that on Ethereum. And just to be completely transparent, I'm going to show you the gains here in a second for these two. And maybe potentially how I try to find some of these things. But to be completely transparent, I broke my own rules today, and I lost about a half of an Ethereum, which, if you're aware, it's around $800 or $900, which to me is a lot. Like I've stated before, I don't have nearly as much crypto as people think in this space. I'm a sole income provider for my family. And I did something extremely stupid today. Somehow I got into this dual Telegram group and signed up for this IDO, or didn't sign up, but sent Ether to this address for this IDO, initial decentralized exchange offering, for this EVN token. But, that's across the board, especially with these newer coins, there's always going to be scams. I got burnt today. Luckily, I actually was talking with Kevin Cage. I got airdropped some 1-inch, and maybe 3 or 4 days ago, I checked and I realized I had this 1-inch on there. So I'm just going to consider that a wash and move on. So, greed does crazy things to people. And I thought that this thing was going to potentially do 100x. And it did. It did a 90x. But, I got burnt in the process trying to get in with this IDO type thing. So, all right. So I posted this yesterday. And, I'm always extremely transparent with you guys. I make mistakes too. But what I try to do for the most part is try to find projects that are, especially right now and since November, because like I said, long-term bags are there. With money that I can 100% afford to lose, look into projects that are about to be released, that haven't been released yet, or maybe just released, with interesting announcements that may pivot the price in a positive direction. And it's extremely high risk. But for the most part, whenever you go from a stance of, okay, I know there's a team, I know there's utility, or at least proposed utility. I know that there's partnerships. I know that there's a Twitter presence. I know that there's all these sorts of things. You can do pretty well in a market like this. And, it is what it is. I'm going to show these couple and then go from there. But yeah, I got burnt on this, the IDO thing for EVN, that fake IDO thing. I still ended up buying into the token. And the gas fees were absolutely insane. A lot of that community is really pissed. Well, I'll talk about that in a second. All right, interesting project. This is DAO Maker. Token sale goes live February 9th at 4 a.m. Eastern time. This thing, I did not wake up at 4 a.m. this morning. I posted this yesterday. I woke up at about 7 a.m. this morning because I'm like, okay, this is an initial exchange offering. Certainly could dump. But I posted this yesterday to Patreon. I will show you a little bit about DAO Maker, who they're involved with, and there's some pretty interesting integrations that they've done in the past, and they've decided to make their own digital asset. This thing did a, hold on here. Bear with me for 1 second. My computer's going to be slow now. This thing did a 30x in about 13 hours, 14 hours. So that's not a 30x percentage. That's 3,000%. Now it's up 3,024% in 30 hours. This thing went live at 4 a.m. It was initially selling at 10 cents, just over 10 cents. I think I actually ended up buying right around $1.80 just because it's brand new. And I saw that pump. Now, this could certainly dump still. I'm not advocating that you go out and buy something like this after it's done a 3,000% gain in 14 hours. But these are the things these are the things that we should try to find in this bull market, because these things can pump like crazy high, and they pump crazy high in a very short and in a very unsustainable amount of time, in my opinion. But still, you've got to think, and I don't know what the market cap was when this thing released. I didn't look that deep into it. DAO Maker has some really interesting relationships here. They're partnered up with, or they've worked with Injective Protocol, NEM, and NEM actually posted on their Twitter about them. NEM has millions of, I think it's either a couple 100,000 followers or a couple million followers on Twitter. AVAX, Elrond, which I know a lot of you guys are big into, Ferrum, which has done really well this year, Harmony One, which I did a deep dive on, LTO, which I will probably look into that one, and 2Key I've heard about, but I haven't looked into. But also, there's more integration too with this DAO Maker too. I mean, you can look at some of these partnerships here. These are fundraising clients. There are direct integrations with a team. You always got to look at the team here. Here's some of the token holders from an institutional standpoint. Blockchain companies, which Orion is one of them, and Matic we know is big. Orion was actually incubated by DAO Maker, and I hold Orion. I've held Orion for a while. So these things can be found, though. And this, a lot of people think that that I bullshit people about certain percentage gains. No, I'm certainly not bullshitting. But it's hard to do some things like this also. Would I expect everything that I post to do a 28x in 14 hours? Certainly not. But it is what it is. This was the other one that I posted yesterday. And I'll say one thing about this. This is at this Evolution Finance. They were essentially researched by the same DAO Maker that just did a 29x, okay? So this is Evolution. They're tied in with Ferrum Network. Essentially what they're trying to do is, a money market on Ethereum that supports collateralization, lending, and leverage of the top 50 blockchain assets ported through something like RenVM. What they did, and this thing was a complete shit show. I will not lie to you whatsoever. They essentially stated they were going to have a fair launch. The launch did not go as smooth as I would have hoped, in my opinion, because I presented this to Patreon. I presented all the risks too. And I said, this is crazy risk. This is the highest risk thing that I've ever posted, but it could 100x. And it did 90x, to be fair. But I'm sure that people were getting wrecked with gas fees and stuff like this as well. Essentially 300,000 tokens. That's the total supply. And they did their public sale with 300,000 tokens, and it went live, I think, at like 11:30 this morning, or something like that. And the tokens were each $1 whenever they went out. They set gas limits and stuff like that on Uniswap, and you'll see in a second that thing went from $1 to about $90 in about 35 minutes. So, that's an insane amount of money to be gained, and it looks like some of the initial buyers probably dumped back on the market. But what I will say is, and I'm sure that people got screwed buying to an extent, certain people. I saw that there was only 2 likes on the Patreon, and I know I already talked to Matthew L-I-N-Y on Twitter. I think he got at a decent price. But these things are extremely risky. Anytime you're using gas fees, I actually had to push my transaction through, and I think I got in at about $30. For about $600 or $500 or $600. But I was hoping it's really weird. Like whenever I actually did the transaction, it showed that I was going to have about double the amount of tokens that I got. I got about half. So my buy-in price went from about $15 to $30 probably within 20 seconds. That's how crazy that thing was. So, but yeah, it is an interesting platform. I've been very much so debating on just selling, but even though the initial coin offering, was a complete shit show, they have an interesting use case here, essentially competing with Celsius, Compound, and Aave. We know what Aave's done recently. We know what Compound could do. We certainly know what Celsius has done, and I'm not into Celsius. But They have RenVM. They've got, hold on here real quick, because I know Ferrum and stuff's on here. Okay. Blockchain strategy team, which has played a crucial role in the launch of Icon and Aeon. DAO Maker, the governance technology is provided by DAO Maker. We just saw that DAO Maker did a 29x. Technologies used by Elrond, Avalanche, NEM, and more. Ferrum Network is the smart contract development for this Evolution Finance or whatever it's called. And Arcadia Group, smart contract security. So regardless of how the token launch went, this is how this thing looked. And it was extremely nerve-wracking to be a part of. And again, I did a huge disclaimer on Patreon saying, if you're more risk averse, please wait. I have like 40 tabs open with Polkadot projects that are about to be coming out, which I would much more recommend. Even though none of it's financial advice, I would recommend getting into, projects that have a little bit more of a safety net, I would say. Even though they're newer, I think a lot of the DOT projects, if you can pick the right ones, and they're kind of easy to spot too with some of the teams and stuff, you'll probably be okay. And that's something like if you want to like 3x or 4x or 5x, potentially your money. I found this last week, and I found it again today. And I asked the Patreon group on Twitter, should I present this to the Patreon itself? And, I put a huge disclaimer on it, and I would have really felt bad. And this thing could still do well. It could certainly dump too. But I think the token rollout was terrible. I put a huge disclaimer on the actual Patreon post. But this is what we were looking at here pretty much. This is about 11:30 a.m. We were sitting at, I got to zoom in. This is like the 1 minute chart. 11:30 a.m., like right around $1, right? And by 12:40, so I guess it was closer to an hour. 12:40, it went from $1 to $90 in about 70 minutes. So, it is what it is right now. I think the bots have kind of taken over as far as the trading is concerned. This thing isn't even listed to CoinMarketCap yet or CoinGecko. I don't think CoinGecko yet. But yeah, I mean, these things are high risk. The 400,000 total market or total supply, which is already circulating, all 400,000, is crazy cheap. There was another staking token that they had, which was called Envy, which essentially they were already telling users that it's 9 transactions on MetaMask and it was going to be 1.2 Ether in gas fees. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And again, I got scammed in that IDO thing. I'm always transparent with you guys. I broke my only cardinal rule, which is always to double check and verify myself no matter what I do. And I didn't. Somehow I got into this dual mirror Telegram group that had like 15,000 subscribers. So I'm sure a lot of people got scammed. Luckily, I didn't send anything that was, going to absolutely murder me. But it is what it is. So a 90x in an hour is still possible. I would say probably likely with some coins in the next couple of months, even though this bull market is going to be gearing to wrap up, in my opinion, probably by early summer. 90x is certainly possible. We can see with DAO Maker that 30x is certainly possible. And, make no mistake about it, these things out there are out there and these things exist. Just know, if you're a patron and if you're on my Patreon, I post these things, but they come with a giant disclaimer. I do other posts where you can see actual integrations, deep dives, stuff like that. But if I see something that I think might go up, I'm certainly going to post it. But I'll post it with a gigantic caveat, which means you might lose your ass on it. But normally what I'm posting, I'm trying to get into, that may not be the situation that you want to get into as well. Something like this is much higher risk. And if it's higher risk, I will certainly post. I think I posted on Patreon. This is insane high risk. This is the highest risk thing that I've ever posted to Patreon. There's other normal things where I just post interesting coins with use cases and partnerships. And for the majority, even though it's not financial advice, a lot of them have done really well. 5x, 10x, 15x on a couple. This was an insane thing. I don't know if I'm going to be doing something like this again, because even I was nervous getting into this thing. I'm like, I'm going to lose my ass. But it is what it is. So we'll see where this goes. I think the project, in my opinion, even though the token rollout was terrible, I think that it is probably a legit project. I hope we have some more clarity on this. Certainly not recommending you guys that are watching my channel buy in at $60. But it is what it is at this point. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, it was a little bit different. These digital assets that can do 20x, 30x, 50x in a day are out there. But watch for these soft rug pulls. Potential. I'm not going to sit out. It could have been potentially bots too, but watch for these soft rug pulls that are going to be going on with these newer assets. And there are safer newer assets to get into too. If something's been released to Uniswap or one of these other trading platforms, and I hate dealing with Uniswap, sometimes it initially dumps and it's a really good project. Paid network, we got onto it in like I think mid-January, the second week of January at 38 cents, and it went to $5. And it initially dumped. It went from like 38 down to like 26 or 27 cents. So, don't get scared of tiny little dumps, but this is more speculative. These aren't long-term bag tradings. These aren't long-term bag investment amounts. If I was personally to invest in these types of things. But it is what it is. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was different. Just trying to be transparent with you all. And yeah, these crazy, crazy things exist. So I will talk to you if there's news tomorrow. Later.